What's up, guys? It's me, Danny, and today I'm gonna look at Taylor Swift's chart, and I'm really interested about it. One of my astrology mentors is just really obsessed with Taylor Swift, and he loves her chart, and so I wanted to kind of walk you guys through it. It's a pretty good chart. It kind of, so we'll kind of jump right into it. All right, so looked at a bunch of websites to try to get an accurate time for this. Looks like pretty much everyone agreed 8:36 a.m. in Reading, Pennsylvania, and of course 1989, December 13th. So she's a Sag Sun, but let's jump into it. So, of course, again, we're going to be practicing the Hellenistic astrology method, traditional method of reading a chart. So we look at the ascendant first. So we've got Capricorn rising, and Capricorn rising automatically sort of relates to someone who is sort of business savvy, responsible, reliable, professional. For people who are light skinned or white skinned, Capricorn rising is very associated with like curly blonde hair. It's the sea goat, and I don't know what it is, but it's for people who are white. And Capricorn is just really likely to have curly blonde hair. So she has straight blonde hair most of the time, but the kind of she has had curly hair sort of before. I wonder if her hair is probably naturally a little curlier. I don't know. Not familiar. So that's that. And of course, Capricorn's owned by Saturn. And so we look at Saturn here, and it's in Capricorn. It's in its own sign. I mean, already this is a very strong powerhouse of a person. Saturn in its own sign. This is a person who's really responsible, really reliable, really knows how to execute things that she wants to do. She's just already set up for someone who like is gonna complete things. A lot of us are sort of starters, and we have come up with ideas. I know I'm like that. It's hard for me to like actually follow through and execute, but this is a chart of like someone who really executes things. And as we know, successful people, they're doers. They have an idea and they do it. Everybody else has ideas and doesn't really follow through with them. So that's, it's like they say like what do they say, like 80 or 90% of life is just showing up, something like that. So it's the person who shows up. And it's got Mercury right there conjunct Saturn, just within a few degrees. It's really excellent. Of course, Mercury is the planet of communication, the voice, and Mercury in Capricorn is is typically a very, very sort of comported individual, someone who really follows the rules, is going to say the right things, try to do the right things, and of course she's always really trying to do the right thing. And maybe some people say that she's a little bit maybe like a little bit too buttoned up, or she's like a little too calculating or calculated. But that's kind of what you get here. She's got Mercury kind of under wraps of Saturn, really trying to be appropriate, really trying to be proficient and eloquent and correct and appropriate. So that's what's going on here. It's a great position. Born with Mercury right there on the rising. This is a communicator. I mean, you really can't really have a better position for sort of a public figure, because they've got this really, really well communicative person, just right. The Mercury just really helping everything come through as eloquently as possible. And, I do think, some people do think she's kind of full of it, and is just a little bit, again, very calculated and maybe a little bit inauthentic, but she, first and foremost, is a business person, and she's professional. And so, in terms of her PR and her marketing and the way she communicates herself, like she's got all that under wraps, so she's very under control, and everything is very controlled. And that's just kind of how it is. So, whether it's a little bit inauthentic, is up for you to kind of decide. So here's what's really interesting. She got this Mercury Saturn thing going on really strong right here on the ascendant, and it's sort of antagonizing and being antagonized by the seventh house. So you got this really intense first and second house dynamic. And the seventh house is the house of other people. So it makes sense that, she has all these sort of PR issues, and like she's very confrontational. So she's like confronting fans, confronting other, public celebrity figures who are against her, and she has it like set up in the chart that kind of people want to confront her and fight her, and she kind of wants to fight back. So she kind of has that energy in her chart. It's a very tense aspect. It's like the primary thing going on in her chart, this back and forth. And the thing that's interesting though is, and she's been criticized for using conflict sort of as PR, and as publicity. And I think she's smart, and I think she knows that, and I think, whether or not she has maybe an astrologer or somebody kind of showing her about these things, this is another, I've been talking a lot about archetypes lately in the chart. You want to use your archetype. She's got an archetype here that creates fire in these public situations with other people. Might as well use it to her advantage. She doesn't really have a choice. So, she dates a lot of high profile people. They tend to be really intense, explosive affairs. She uses all of that to fuel her songwriting. She gets into fights with other celebrities. It's just this is what's going on. So she has the seventh house represents relationships, open enemies, and also represents your audience, because and anybody who's like directly opposed to you. We see that this is a Cancer, and so that's ruled by the moon, and the moon's in Cancer in its own sign, conjoined Jupiter in Cancer. This is a really, really intense positioning. So I just did a post about moon signs and how the moon can hijack the chart and pull you away from your archetype. The moon in its own sign in Cancer is really strong and powerful. It's more balanced than any other position. But the moon tells you what you're greedy for, what you can't get enough of. And when it's conjoined Jupiter, it can be a little dangerous, because Jupiter is the planet of like expansion. It adds energy to whatever it's touching. And so, you see, Whitney Houston had the moon and Jupiter conjoined. I forget what sign, but it was a little bit in an unfortunate positioning, and that was the obsession and the greed and the never get enough of that could, that led Whitney Houston allegedly to drugs and issues and that kind of thing. I mean, the celebrity life is hard on anybody's psychology, but when you have this moon Jupiter thing, it's I can never get enough. So how that benefits her is, so this is actually really related to her audience. So and of course she has the most obsessive audience. So she's got the moon and Jupiter in Cancer. Like, this is her audience. Her audience is obsessed with her. Cannot get enough of her. And so it's maybe, a part of it's probably maybe one of the only ways that Jupiter and moon conjunction is like really going to benefit the native of the chart. So this is an obsessive audience, and it's going to create other people obsessed with her. So, these men who are obsessed with her, who date her, her enemies, her open enemies, who hate her, are going to be obsessed with her. She has this, it's built in the chart, people obsessed with her. And I think, again, she uses that to her advantage, and she's really, really like kind to her fans. She at least her publicity around her fans is like phenomenal. She just always like showing up to people's houses and giving them stuff, and she every time she wins an award, she just thanks her fans over and over again. So she's just like playing her cards like so well, and she's just got such a tight chart. She's just, I do understand how she could come across as being naive and like privileged, and she really, I think she really does try to be helpful to other people, but when you have a chart that's so advantaged like this, it's hard. It's like a chart of someone who's really, really privileged. It's hard, it can be hard for them to understand what it's like to be on the other side of things, and how the best way to go about helping is. So just, this chart is really tight in in just, again, this Mercury Saturn thing and this Jupiter Moon thing. There's really not much else going on in this chart. This is the dominant thing that's going on. I don't even feel like it's relevant to kind of touch into some of these other things. The one thing I will say, when we look at a Babylonian sunset or chart or a sunrise chart, we can see here, so the sun, she was born 8:36 a.m. The sun is just a little bit above the horizon right here, and Mars was rising right before the sun. And when Mars rises before the sun, you get a really sort of that ferocious, fiery quality, that sort of, and that's totally her shtick. She's on stage and she's fiery and she's ferocious and she's a warrior. She's got that warrior kind of facade, and that's Mars in Scorpio. That red lip. I mean, come on, Scorpio. Mars, that makes sense. So she's also like, she's sort of untouchable, and you have Mars right there protecting the whole chart. Like everything's totally under lock. And she has the Jupiter setting right after the moon, protecting the moon. I mean, she's so well protected. She's untouchable. Like she could just go anywhere. She's safe, like she doesn't even need a security guard. Her chart has just got it all. She's untouchable. It's great. So anyway, that's my run through Taylor Swift's chart. It's a great chart. Maybe it's magnificent. Let's look real quick and see the Horary chart and see here if anything else notable. Okay, wow, this is crazy. So I talk about out of bounds planets sometimes. Out of bounds, abbreviated OOB. I have articles about this. She got her moon and her Mercury out of bounds. And actually, since this is a celebrity chart, I should actually touch on some of the outer planets. She has Uranus in Capricorn, pretty much conjoin the ascendant. That's pretty intense. Uranus is a really intense planet. They related a lot. It can be related with really intense weather patterns. We also look at Uranus for divorce in the chart. I think that sets her up again for having a lot of sort of tumultuous relationships. And then we have Neptune pretty much right there in this first house on the ascendant as well. That's Neptune. Neptune rising. One of the most famous celebrities that have this archetype is Marilyn Monroe. She has the Neptune on the ascendant. It creates sort of a fog. It makes these people a little bit hard to read. It's easy to sort of project onto them. It creates an allure. Like, who is that person? And again, more opposition to her audience, more obsessed with this illusion of who she is. I mean, come on, guys. This is crazy. And then she's got Pluto sort of, near Mars and Scorpio here, adding more intensity. So wow, it's just really well organized chart. It's pretty crazy. And okay, so she got Moon and Mercury out of bounds. When a planet's out of bounds, it's exaggerated. It's on steroids. Again, we were talking about her audience being really obsessed with her. Got the Moon out of bounds. I mean, if it weren't already there, this adds another layer to this. Obsessed. Her audience. And then Mercury. She's got Mercury on the first house cusp. Again, this ability to be really communicated, kind of really like buttoned up and appropriate and comported, and that's out of bounds. So she's a really wild communicator, can't stop talking, loves to talk, loves to communicate. I mean, again, all of this stuff is just adding another layer, just supporting all the stuff I just said. Again, an extremely organized chart. It's kind of crazy perfect, at least for what she's about. I mean, again, I'm not necessarily like a fan or not a fan, but I mean, come on, this chart's crazy. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that, and let me know what you think about Taylor Swift's chart, and if if there are any other celebrity charts you want me to look at. I'd love to hear from you guys. Please subscribe to my channel. Check out my website, dannypugh.com. I love to answer questions on Quora.com. And in the meantime, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.